Hi guys, what's up? I'm here with a very special guest. He's my mentor on SOMA Awakening Breathworks, Neeraj Naik from Renegade Pharmacist, a former pharmacist in UK that first discovered the power of breath after finding peace and comfort in a sauna after hard days of work from his highly stressful career as a community pharmacist in England. And today Neeraj teaches thousands of people around the world how to become superhuman, reach human peak performance, self-healing, manifesting the law of attraction through advanced breath techniques. Hi, Niraj. I'm very honored to have you for a life-changing interview that I'm sure will inspire many Brazilians to follow the same path.
Thank you, man. A pleasure to be here.
Yeah, Niraj, since I became the first SOMA Breathworks instructor down here in Brazil, crazy things are happening on my life, and I really find a new way, a new old way under brackets to do a next step on my evolution process. I learned how to manifest properly the law of attraction on my life. I learned how to teach my students to heal themselves or reach their unlimited human potential within themselves. And I know about your history, but I would like that my listeners hear this history from you. So how did you get from a pharmacist in England to a very inspiring teacher helping thousands of people around the world?
Fantastic. Yeah. So it's been quite a journey because I was very different, obviously, as a pharmacist. Very different personality. It was almost like I'd lost my soul. Okay, because I'm a quite creative person, and your listeners who may relate to this, if you are very creative, if your mind is like more dreamy and you're like an artist or a musician or someone, to go and do a work where you're like a robot, working like a robot all day long, standing on your feet, you know, just all day long, no rests, no breaks, very stressful environment. We can't handle it. We're not the type of people who can handle it. We break down. And I had a lot of stress as a pharmacist. Firstly, because I hated the job, you know, such a boring, it just didn't suit me as a career. Secondly was I'm a spiritual person. We'll talk a bit more about what being spiritual really means, but from a heart level, I really genuinely care for people. And one of the reasons I originally signed up for this profession was because I felt I was going into a healthcare profession. But it was actually the opposite of what I thought, because you aren't really caring for people's health if you're giving them loads of drugs that make them more sick and they're not getting better. So I couldn't understand this whole system of healthcare. It didn't make sense to me. It was more like disease care. It was more like we were caring for the disease to stay longer. That's what it seemed like. So I eventually tried to make my job more fun, and I looked for ways to heal patients in the pharmacy because I wanted to get them off the drugs because I knew they were causing so many problems. And in doing so, I ended up getting promoted to one of the biggest corporations, the head office. I came up with an amazing concept for them. And I was about to launch this healthy shopping list idea to the mainstream. But then they got freaked out. They got scared that I, was basically going to kill their profits because I was telling people not to drink Coca-Cola. I was telling people not to eat chocolates that are made in factories and all this kind of junk, you know, and McDonald's and all this stuff, which this junk food is where they make a lot of their money, right? Like most of the profits of these companies comes from selling factory processed foods. And that's what causes disease for a lot of people. It's this junk fuel that we're putting into our systems. Buying things in boxes and packets that are ready made, they're full of so many additives. Just the process of getting food in a packet and shipped from one country to another it requires so many chemicals, preservatives and things, that the food is no longer food anymore. It's a chemical mixture of things, right? Poisons and toxins, and there's a little bit of nutrition there, but it's mixed up with all of this stuff that causes disease. So I just got people off that stuff, and they got better. And then this company, they were about to launch my idea, but then they called an emergency meeting and they scrapped the idea. So I became so disillusioned with the world. I went into a big depression because I felt like I was going to have to go back to working as a pharmacist. I tried so hard to get out of the pharmacy. Now my only option now was to go back to being a pharmacist, which was so depressing, soul destroying. And I started to, not care about myself anymore. I was drinking a lot, heavily. I just lost all my care, my self-love. And then I got sick, really sick with a chronic illness that left me housebound for a year, called colitis, ulcerative colitis. And like literally you're on the toilet 40 times a day, all this stuff. Yeah, it's horrible. I lost I was at 40 kilos weight at one point, 40 kilos. Wow. Yeah, I went from about 70 to 40, It was I was like half the size I am now. And I'm quite slim, right? So it's not easy to do that. So I then, luckily, now a very close friend of our family, she's a yoga teacher in the UK. She's quite successful as a yoga teacher. She has an amazing yoga school called Traditional Yoga Association. And she came over, and she's called Swami Ambikananda, and she taught me the fundamentals of pranayama, yoga, and Ayurveda. And I got obsessed with this stuff, and I went really deep on it. And within a few months, I healed myself from this chronic illness. And she told me that if you can heal yourself, you've got a gift, all right? You can, as a pharmacist, with your science knowledge and having this esoteric knowledge, you can really inspire people with the truth. So that was it. That's what happened, and the rest of the history. I went really back into music. As I said, I'm a very creative person. Music is a big passion of mine. And I discovered that music is a therapeutic tool. If you do it the right way, not like, Drake and all that nonsense. Like, I'm talking about proper music, right? Like spiritual, soulful music. It can heal the body, right? So, I just went deep into that. I went deep into all these techniques like yoga, pranayama. I ended up touring around the world. I ended up making music for some of the world's famous therapists and real-life superhumans like Wim Hof. The entire Wim Hof method is created by myself, the audios and the music. We formed a little band together, and I even lived with him. So I trained a lot in some of the Himalayan techniques that he has. And it all just led me to going deep into my own practice tradition of yoga and pranayama and Ayurveda. And from that, I met a doctor, an amazing doctor called Prakash Malsh. He has a really good book, Medical Understanding of Yoga. And we actually teamed up. I went to meet him in Rishikesh. He taught me some really powerful techniques for healing, because he uses yoga and pranayama in a clinic. He's a qualified medical doctor, but he's kind of moved towards this now. And he's done an amazing explanation of the Sanskrit sutras of yoga from a medical and scientific perspective. And by doing that, it really gave me a very rounded understanding of these ancient techniques and why I was able to heal myself. And what I did was then I combined all of this stuff that I learned and put together what I believe is the most powerful system, the simplest and most fun system for reaching the peak human experience. And the side effect of that is you get healthy, you get more connected to your spirit, and you become more creative. And it unlocks powers of the brain and the mind that have been written in legendary stories before, but now like everyday people can experience them. And I'm just giving back abilities that we already have. We've always had them. We just haven't been told how to unlock them. So now I'm just giving you the instructions in a language that you can understand.
Yeah, truly. And I'm as an instructor now formed by you is, the way that you teach us, explain us is very powerful. And we feel ourselves very inspired to share the same message to help people with what you learned with you. So I'm very thankful and grateful for have find you on my way of evolution, on my way of always seeking for the human peak experience. So one of the concepts that we are talking a lot lately, especially in my channel, in everything that I do, is about spirituality. I would like to listen from you this concept of spirituality. What does spiritual mean for you?
Okay. Everyone is spiritual. Every single person is born spiritual and will die spiritual. The reason why is because spiritual, what it means actually is, if you look at the Latin root meaning of that word spiritual, it actually translates into to breathe. Spirit, espiritu, means breath. Okay, so actually when you breathe, you are spiritual. You are a spiritual being. We are all spiritual beings. Okay, so what the ancients understood, okay, was that breath is life, all right? And life is just a series of inhales and exhales. So ultimately, we're all spiritual. And what they discovered was that when you breathe in certain patterns and ways, you can change the whole chemical process of life itself. And through that, we can connect to the spirit within, which is our soul. Okay, and what happens when we do that is we can actually speak to God. And what is God? God is just the spirit within all of us. So when we pray in a certain way and we connect with our breath in prayer, we can actually reprogram the programs within us. So we're all born with programs, a set of programs. And if we want to change our reality, if we want to call more things into us, we just need to rewrite the story. So his story, okay, history, we are just a product of stories. If you think about it, we are our past, okay, and it will continue to be our past unless we change our story and the meaning behind it. And using spiritual techniques like prayer, self-hypnosis, which is what you could describe it as, meditation, okay, meditation through breath, okay, through using the spirit, I found is the most powerful and the most true to the ancient traditions, the ancient shamanic and spiritual practices of the Rig Veda, the ancient Indian texts, the Chinese systems, the Mongolian systems, and all these systems, their root seems to be breath work, breathing practices. And I'm just bringing back, like, the most, in my opinion, the simplest ways of enhancing our physiology through breath and connecting to our deepest spirit inside, which is pranayama. The pranayama system and meditation combined, I believe, is the most powerful way to become spiritual, like to become truly spiritual, because we learn to breathe. Okay, we learn to breathe. We're never taught how to breathe. So this is what the idea of yoga is. It's liberation. It's to wake up, awaken.
Wow, amazing. Because, I came from the school of coaching, neuro-linguistic programming, and also from the school of the self-help books and all that shit about how to be better, how to improve. And I was very, very inspired to self-develop myself, to develop really and reach my full human potential. But with the due time following this path, I reached out to a plateau. I couldn't evolve anymore. I was so stressed. I was so disconnected from myself. I was that type of very pragmatic guy, very logical, pragmatic, methodical guy that I need to have science, to have theoretical information to do something, have an argument about science to help really make me practice something. But I was so disconnected from myself that I didn't find the true wisdom that is within ourselves, because information leads us to knowledge, and I was gathering a lot of information, but I was not living that information. I was not experiencing that information. I was not practicing that information. And wisdom is something that's from our body, that we learn with the due practices. And I was so physically and mentally balanced, but spirituality was very low, you know. And then when I wake up for it, like my mind blows, you know, like wow. And all those self-help books doesn't, it totally stops to make sense for me, you know, because I have a wisdom within myself. I have a light shine on me. And that's one of the things that I love more. And I talk all the time to people, but they do not believe that they held in themselves really unlimited, untapped potential, that they can reach out wonders and marvelous things in their lives.
Beautiful. Well, here's the thing, right? So there's a saying that the Jesuits, another one of the sects of Christianity, used to say was, give me a man till they're 7 years old. No, give me a child till they're 7 years old and I'll give you the man. Because they understood that this first 7 years of your life is the most formative. It's when you get programmed, okay? So you become a product of your environment, okay? And people, you hear this word of being asleep, okay? You're walking around a sleeping trance. Well, ultimately what that means is that you're just playing stories and programs that have been conditioned into you, programmed into you, imprinted from a very, very young age, the 0 to 7 years old. Now, what yoga understood was that, and this is a true purpose of yoga, is that we can reshape that story and liberate, become free, all right? And this means that we unlock our true will, and we then become in control of reality, or to a certain degree, have more free will than if we were just running story after story after story from the past. Because, okay, you're a scientific person, right? And a lot of scientists actually I've spoken to, well, especially doctors, in fact, are some of the most unintelligent people. They're the most intelligent, but the least actually wise people. You know, there's a difference between intelligence and like true like knowledge and wisdom, right? And the difference is that intelligence often comes from like stuff you've read that other people have written. Okay, so doctors are really good at just regurgitating facts, and these things come from sources, and those sources come from other sources and so on. Now, how do we genuinely know that any of those sources are true or valid? Okay, and what is the agenda behind those sources being written in the first place? Now think about this in your own life. Like we will instinctively do certain things from a young age. Like we may go towards sugary foods, for example. We may reach for the Coca-Cola. We may even drink alcohol. All right. Here's another one. Alcohol is really, really interesting one, because I don't know if you ever remember your first taste of a beer.
Yeah, it was bitter.
It's horrible, right?
Horrible.
Kids don't like it, right? But yet those same kids end up becoming alcoholics. Why is that? So I came up with this idea called FOFO, the fear of feeling out. So this gets ingrained in us in a very young age, and you could say it's something that's ingrained in our DNA. Because if you go back in time to our time of the tribal ancestors, okay, there we also live in tribes, right? And if you're excluded from the tribe because you either did something wrong, you made a mistake, or you were just not desirable to the tribe, they didn't like you, you did stuff that you just didn't fit in, you're a misfit, you'd be on your own, you'd be out, you'd be excluded, and you wouldn't be able to survive in the wild. And if you did, you'd be very, very lucky, all right? So there was a constant ingrained fear of fitting in. We always are trying to fit into our environment, okay? And a lot of our conditioning comes from this FOFO, where we go and do things just to fit into society, what society thinks we should do. Okay, one of the things, I'm a pharmacist, okay? Same thing goes with doctors, pharmacists. A lot of the doctors, pharmacists, they became doctors and pharmacists, not because they genuinely wanted to be doctors and pharmacists. It's because of status. They did it because of security. They did it because their uncle did it. Their dad did it. It's something that they always did. Even though they hate their life now as a doctor, pharmacist, they just repeat the same story over and over again. Yes, my son is going to be a doctor. Yes, my son's... But what happens is these doctors, they get so conditioned, these pharmacists get so conditioned by the education, and it's so tough that they can't even be bothered anymore to actually research where their knowledge is coming from and whether any of this stuff is true. I had an amazing wake-up call. Okay, I woke up because I got sick with a chronic illness, and then I did all these practices which helped me to go even more into this like awakeness, which isn't always good. Like it can be like terrifying for some people to suddenly wake up in this environment where everyone's asleep, all right, and they're just running these bad programs, and you know it, and you suddenly realize it, and then nobody likes you. Everyone thinks you're weird. For many years, actually, that happened to me, where everyone thought I was really weird. So I believe a lot in community and building community and bringing people together. And I believe that's the best personal development. The best personal development is by learning through community, through tribe, the tribe intelligence. There's not one person who can give you the truth. Okay, I don't believe in that. I'm not the only person out there who has amazing knowledge. Okay, there's many people out there. So I love to bring the collective wisdom of a tribe, a community together. And through that, we learn together, collectively, rather than one person going, this is the answer, this is truth. Because I may be completely full of shit. Who knows? You have to go out and do your own research. So I never let people blindly follow what I do. And some people, you know, some personal development people, they believe that this is it. This is the only way. This is it. And then people get dissatisfied. They go into it and then they realize that that's not fully true. So, you know, I'm more about like, let's actually all learn together. Here's what I've learned. This is what I know. This goes to the root cause, I believe, of why people stay in the story. And here's a roadmap, a way to liberate based on thousands of years of ancient knowledge. So, and wisdom as well. So that's what I'm trying to do is like, I'm not like one of these self-help people. I don't like it. I'm not one of these persons. I don't like being called a guru or anything like that. Mm-hmm. I believe like what we don't know is way more than, like, infinitely bigger than what we think we know. We actually don't know a lot. We don't know much at all.
I totally agree with you. That shit about, secret sauce or, perfect formula. This work for me, so we work for you. This not resounds me on me anymore.
Nah.
That is amazing. When you wake up and see it, then you start to get full of shit that really don't help you, maybe give you some motivation. And I believe that is the first step to make people go out of the victim state, because many of the people, they are in the victim state and they do not believe that they can change their life. So this is a first step. And I believe that is a proper first step, but I think there is much more beyond that, and what you are bringing to the world and spreading this to other instructors like me to spread themselves as well is amazing. Empower the community, empower different regions like you in England and Thailand and around the world. And I'm here in Brazil, in the other side of the world, speaking the same language. And I had to confess that I'm very curious about science, anthropology, philosophy. That's how I find my self-knowledge way as well. And that was what caught up my attention about SOMA, about your job. And because you talk about this, basis, anthropology, science, philosophy also. And for sure, my audience that follows me are very curious about such aspect. Otherwise, they wouldn't follow me because I talk about this all the time. So could you briefly explain the legend of SOMA and the main scientific finding basis for such an awakening to such wonderful awakening to?
Yes, 100%. So you've got to remember, firstly, this has got nothing to do with God or like what we think religion is. Okay, like in my story, my revised story of what I believe religion is, like I've changed my conditioning. I went to a Christian Catholic school growing up. So they told us that there was this great, bearded man who judges us and all this stuff. Then I got confused because then I'm like coming home and my parents are Indians and I see them praying down, bowing down to little statues and idols and giving milk to Ganesh and all this stuff. And I'm like confused. I'm like, what is going on? This is all bullshit. So I've went for a long time being completely atheist, and it was only when I got very sick that I came face to face with God. God being this voice inside me that I believe is the truth, the true will. Okay, it's not something out there that judges us and all this stuff. And that true will made me realize how connected we all truly are. Okay. And actually, one of the first times I would say I really experienced that was when I did MDMA, ecstasy, at a rave. And the DJ played this music, and I was in heaven, it was incredible. So that was a peak experience. And that, then that lasts for a bit, but it's like, it fades away, right? You forget it, you embrace it, but it's not a sustainable experience. It's not something you can be at that level all the time. But it gave me a glimpse into this other way of looking at the world where everyone's connected, all energy is connected. We're all one, the oneness of everything. And I would say that was my first spiritual experience. Then I dabbled with psychedelics and mushrooms and things like that. Again, it came back. And then ayahuasca was this incredibly supernatural experience that just blew the lid off everything and made me believe in this spiritual world. The world of spirit really does exist. You're from Brazil, right? So it's part of your culture back there. So
we are very Catholic Christians here, and that's very strong on the community.
But the ayahuasca and the plant medicine is also there, right?
Yeah, ayahuasca also, and we have, I think, it's a local culture or something like that. It's called Chá do Santo Daime, Saint Daime tea or something like that in English. That's also derives from ayahuasca. Yeah.
So the idea is that there's a spirit world, a world beyond our world, other dimensions, let's say. All right. So let's go back now to what happened to me. So I had this big awakening when I got sick, and I started to do these deep breathwork practices on my own. And what happened was I became very curious about the Vedas, the Vedic texts, and the stories from the Vedas. Because when I looked into it, I realized that this was nothing to do with God or religion at all, actually. These were just like, if you look at it, you could say that the rishis of the golden age of the Rig Veda were actually biohackers. They were like me and you, right? They were people who got together and they shared wisdom based on things that they did. And then they recorded them down eventually, but originally it was just done vocally through songs and hymns. And what these rishis were doing, because they were living in this abundance as well of having everything, they were using psychedelic concoctions, which they called SOMA, to reach these ecstatic states where they would enter into the spirit world. And they would talk to the gods, other entities, and in India, in the Vedic, there's many gods. Right? There's not just, but there is one ultimate creator, Brahma. But the idea is that through going into the other, you can actually receive a lot of wisdom. So the things they were describing to me sounded a lot like the mushroom experiences I had or the ayahuasca experiences I had, and the kind of information and knowledge that I received during these experiences. So what I realized was that they were doing very similar things to what we all do, which is get really high, get like out of the mind and into these peak states. And from there, you start to see the world in a different way. So what I realized then from this was that actually that they also had a similar, I would say, a problem that is going on right now in our world. Okay, so right now, everyone has become dependent on a substance to get high or to escape or to feel more connected to spirit or whatever, right? And there's a huge movement of people going towards ayahuasca or like other plant medicines. And, you know, there'll be people who do 50 or 60 ayahuasca ceremonies. I don't even know if that's how it should be. And I don't know in Brazilian culture if that's supposed to, what you're supposed to do. I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like
getting bigger and people are becoming dependent of it.
And is it? I don't think that's how it was supposed to be, right? No. So same story goes in the Soma legend. That is that all of the rishis became hooked on the Soma. And if you imagine back then, 1,000 years ago, people lived around the Indus Valley. Indus Valley was like in the Mesopotamia region, the pretty much the center of the world. Okay, where Afghanistan, Middle East, that area is, and just where India, Arabia sort of border is, Afghanistan border, Pakistan, that whole area was the Indus Valley. And it's one of the oldest civilizations that we know.
I think they have the oldest temple of the world in that environment.
Yeah. And it's strange that that's where all of the big problems in the world are today, right?
Yeah.
So what happened was people started to move out to find other lands because obviously the population grew. And in doing so, they go into more colder climates. They go in towards Russia. They're going out towards Scandinavia, all these areas where the Soma begins to run out because these psychedelics and stuff maybe didn't grow everywhere. It just grew on a certain region. So anthropologically, you could see as people migrate out, they have to change. They have to adapt. Now, if you look at it like this, if they're hooked on something and the Soma starts running out, okay, everyone starts freaking out. And one of the gods, God Indra, he says that we're all too dependent on the Soma. We must find a way to create the Soma within. So in doing so, they discovered Tantra, and the breath was the root of changing the energy in the body. And in doing so, they also discovered that we already have every single substance that exists in nature already inside. We have our own pharmacy, but we haven't been told how to tap into it. So they created the system of pranayama, of yoga, tantra, Ayurveda. All of these things came from the man's quest to create the Soma within. And the Soma within, you could say, is the DMT, the tryptamines, the serotonin, dopamines that we create naturally. Okay, it's actually we make the biggest psychedelic trip of our whole. Nothing compares to it every single night when we dream. if you remember your dreams are so lucid and so wild and so crazy that you're in a different world altogether, right? That is the greatest psychedelic trip that you can experience. But we do that every single night. So what they discovered was that we can actually tap in, we can mimic this state of when we're in REM sleep and be consciously aware of it and to control it and to tune into it. And that's how you have this very, very profound psychedelic experiences through what I've created now through the SOMA Awakening. Because these tantric breathing practices, when you do it in a certain way and you combine it with certain techniques, you actually can mimic the profound psychedelic trips that you can get through psychedelics like mushrooms and ayahuasca and things like that. Obviously, it's not going to be as intense as if you do plant medicine because it's much more concentrated, but you can get pretty profound results. So anyway, what they realized as well was that actually through different techniques with variations of them, we can actually strengthen the body as well. And actually soma in Greek means, and Latin means body. And the idea is that is one body, one mind, one consciousness, oneness. Everything is the soma. Soma is everything. Okay, they exist. We are all connected. We're all part of the same soma, the same body, the same organism. If you imagine the universe is one giant organism, we're all part of it. Okay, so there's no separation. So the golden rules apply, like do unto others as you expect to be done to yourself. All right. And the fact that we all breathe means we all have that in common as well. So there is no separation. So you can understand now how, as if communities move and migrate out, that they started to form some basic things that became foundations of religion, of modern religion, rules and laws to keep people at peace, to stop them fighting. Okay? And in this quest as well, what I realized was as they were going into harsher and harsher environments, that by going into these harsh environments, okay, they would create tools and techniques that would help them survive in these harsh environments using just the soma, the body. And that's the foundation of yoga. Okay, so there's these ways of doing yoga which has been kind of corrupted a bit in the West now with this yoga industrial complex, where it's more like aerobics. But when you understand the philosophy behind soma and the fact that anaerobic exercises, the trick to getting stronger, and holding your breath, not breathing more and breathing less, are actually what creates strength and resilience. I can talk a bit more about why and the science behind it. That's when humans started to become more superhuman, because they went out of their comfort zone, and they went a little bit out of their comfort zone into areas where they were pushing themselves. You know, so they were in this comfort zone of the Indus Valley where everything was amazing and abundant. Then they start having to go out. So then you can imagine humans start to become more superhuman, bigger, stronger, tougher. Okay, and these practices stayed with most of them in the shamanic communities that spread out. So you could actually follow the migration of shamanic cultures and tribes and people who use psychedelics. And you can actually see there's a strong link between the evolution of mankind and even religion, and the origins of religion have a psychedelic origin as well.
That's fascinating, because when you trace back the history and then you see the spreading of man throughout the world, you see very similar traditions or culture, things that, of course, they have their own signature, but they have different, have a similar point. They have the same objective, and that's fascinating. Yes. But one thing that's not very clear for everyone, I can tell you, is this word awakening. And actually, I have no words to explain this. That resounds deeply within me, but I just can't feel, you know, and it's very difficult to find words to me explain. But you explain it so wonderfully in one of the classes during my formation. So I would like that you could tell us briefly what changes in our lives and within ourselves when we enter in such elevated states of awareness and we awake? What happens? What changes inside us?
Okay, beautiful. So, okay, there's two sides to awakening. The first one is the soma, the body, okay, which then links to the mind. So in yoga, what we have to prepare first is the body. Okay, so they use pranayama and asanas to awaken the power of the body. So when you do yoga the proper way, the soma way of doing it, okay, what you're doing is you're training the body anaerobically. Anaerobically means absence of oxygen. What that does is it forces the cells of the body to adapt and become stronger. Okay, and you notice in SOMA Awakening, the process, we use breath retention techniques, holding breath. When you hold your breath for certain periods of time, okay, you lower the oxygen in the body. Okay, now there's a reason for doing this. So oxygen is obviously something that all the cells need. The mitochondria of the cell, every cell has a mitochondria. It needs the oxygen, which is air, to burn the glucose to create fire, the energy. And that energy is our fuel. It's what drives us, okay? ATP. And that's actually the currency of life itself, is this energy, this ATP energy. Now, what they realized was that to become superhuman, to become like at your peak performance, you need to have the most efficient mitochondria. So they use techniques like breath retention, breath holds, and anaerobic exercise to train the mitochondria to become very efficient in using as least amount of oxygen as possible. Now, here's the thing. What happens if you have too much air on a fire? Look at California, right? The wildfires of California. Too much air on the fire burns too bright. Same thing happens in the mitochondria. Too much oxygen or too much sugar, glucose, actually causes too much free radicals to be produced. Reactive oxygen species, okay? So what that causes is damage to the cell. So in order to lower the risk of damage as much as possible, you need to become as efficient as using oxygen as possible. And that's why we have these techniques. And what it does is it awakens you to becoming the most optimized at using oxygen as possible. All right? So this wakes up your superhuman powers of strength, endurance, fitness, stamina. Okay? Who are the strongest army in the world? The Gurkha army in Nepal, right? They train at high altitudes where the oxygen is very, very, very low. Okay? They train up in the Himalayas, okay, in Nepal, mountains regions and stuff. And they are the strongest army. They're like brought in by the British and the Americans, and they are incredible, right? They don't get sick and they live a long time and blah, blah, blah. So why is that? It's because they train at high altitude. Low oxygen, become super efficient, and they have less risk of oxygen damage. Same thing, superhuman, the legendary yogis of the Himalayas. Why do they go and live at the peaks of the Himalayas? Why do they go and live over there? Because very low oxygen environments, okay? You live longer if you live in less oxygen environments. That's just a strange, weird fact. The body adapts, becomes stronger and more efficient. So that's the first part of the process, okay? Now here's the other thing. When you hold your breath for a certain period of time and you lower oxygen, okay, for a brief period, it's called intermittent hypoxia. Intermittent hypoxia is basically where you have brief periods of lower than normal oxygen. And we use breath retention. Whereas Russian scientists have been mimicking what these Nepalese armies have been doing, these yogis have been doing, what Russian athletes have been doing, by using machines to simulate high altitude training. So using machines, they'll give you a period of high oxygen and then minutes of low oxygen to get your oxygen down to a certain level. So what this does, okay, is it creates this positive adaptive response in the body to having less oxygen. And then that means that your body blood vessels wake up. Okay, your capillaries dilate, they awaken. You wake up parts of the brain that haven't been used before, because which organ has the most demand for oxygen? Your brain and your heart. So you wake up capillaries in the brain. You wake up capillaries in the heart. You get a stronger heart. You get dormant functions of the brain waking up. Parts of the reptilian brain, the most primal part of our brain, which actually has a lot in common with reptiles, lizards, birds, okay, who have like super sensory abilities. We can wake up similar abilities that they have. This is where this realms of telepathy, meditation, where you can actually read somebody's thoughts, telekinesis, all this kind of weird stuff that yogis can do. They have shown actually in certain studies that we can actually create. And actually I've studied with children, trained with children in India who have developed these powers, because in children it's a lot easier. Adult brains are a lot harder to change. Okay, but with children you can wake up these dormant abilities very quickly. So this is the one mechanism, okay, of waking up to your higher power, to your higher self. The next is the side effect of this is on the mind. So if we remember that the SOMA is the mind, SOMA is everything, in my opinion. So we are all and everything, as above, so below. So what we do on our physical level also affects us on the energy level and the esoteric, like ethereal level of the mind, superconscious mind. So what they understood, the yogis understood, was that our mind doesn't reside in the brain. There is actually layers of mind above the physical body. Okay, and actually they've shown this scientifically now that we have these auric fields, energy fields around the body, and these electromagnetic frequencies and fields could be, you could say, is a part of the mind. You know, like there's a funny joke that says, "Where is the mind? Never mind," because we're never going to know. We're never going to really know. But what I've noticed is that when I work on the physical body and I work on my feelings, by feeling really good as much as possible, my mind operates way more efficiently, with more clarity, more focus. I'm much better with people. I can like influence people. I become more attractive to people when I physically feel good. So, you know, like Richard Branson, he was asked, like, what's your number one hack for success? And he says, working out. Tony Robbins always says, if you snooze, you lose, you know, and he's all about working out and moving and getting into your body, because emotion is energy in motion. So the more movement we get, the better our emotions get. So what we do then is if we work on the SOMA, all these special tantric yoga techniques and breath work, what we can do is we can actually change the mind at the level of the hard disk. So imagine that we're like a big computer, a super efficient biocomputer, and our physical body is the hard disk. Okay. Now, if you want to go from a PC to a Mac, right? Because when you go Mac, you don't go back. All right. We need to upgrade both. We need to actually change everything. We need to change the hard disk and the software. We need to go from, you know, Microsoft Windows to OS X. It's a big shift. So there are certain ways of doing it. One of the ways is through these very, very vigorous yoga techniques of completely reprogramming the cell to grow back actually as a new optimized version of itself, where you're actually working on DNA level. All right. Another way is using psychedelics. Okay, so psychedelics is one way of doing this. Now, I've created a process where actually we use the breath instead of the psychedelics, and we use these shamanic practices, sauna, and a lot of programming goes on in the sauna and cleansing the body, getting rid of all the toxins and literally rebuilding the body back up. And then what happens is through this, we can use the power of affirmation and self-hypnosis, guided meditation. Okay, they're all the same thing, actually. Guided meditation, hypnosis, it's all the same thing. It's a different way of saying the same thing. We can actually go in and reprogram the operating system. So the operating system is the mind. okay? The hard disk is the physical body. So in order to go from PC to OSX, we can use these special tools to actually go in and reprogram the very thoughts that arise from our physiology itself, okay? So if you want to get results in your life, all right, we have to work on the level of our actions, because results are a process created by action. Now, these are on the outside of our body. This is the levels of our cognitive process and thinking. But internally, the inner world is where the thoughts come from. So before a decision's made, we need thoughts. So where do the thoughts come from? They come from emotions and feelings. So actually, we are actually like a soup of different hormones and chemicals and substances that creates our thoughts, emotions, and feelings. So I have this acronym, love, LOVE, level of vibrational energy. And the highest vibrational of love is the emotions of passion and joy. That's when and peace, when you have love for everyone, okay? Love for self and love for everyone, okay? When you're in a state of passion, you have absolute love for what you're doing at that time. It's a high energy, right? But when you're in these low energies of guilt, anger, sorrow, fear, all of this stuff, you're a different person completely to the person who's passionate and at their best. It's almost like two different people. And you can take a look at the hormonal system that's going on when somebody's under fear and the neurology compared to somebody who's at joy, and you'll see big differences. So my whole technique with SOMA Awakening is to give you a set of tools so that you change your state, your emotional state, your energy, emotion, your emotion, so that it's always acting at this level here of passion. Well, it's not always going to be able to do that. We're humans. We're always going to have bad days, but as much as possible at these high vibrational states. That's what the awakening is about. And this is why I call this is why I call it the awakening, because this is how we wake up out of the trance. The cultural hypnosis that's going on in the world is that there's war, there's constant, scarcity, there's lack of money. If you don't buy Gucci, nobody's going to sleep with you. All these crazy bullshit stories that we're told over and over and over again to get us to buy shit that we don't want. This is the sleeping trance that everyone's been born into. Because, as the Jesuits said, give me a child, till they're 7, and I'll show you the man. All right? Same thing corporations do. Give me a child when they're up till this years of 7 years old, and they'll be my customer for life. That's how it works. So what we're doing is waking people up out of that trance. So they stop buying stupid shit they don't want. They find relationships that actually they want to be in, and they start to actually embrace their passions again in life without fear. And they don't worry about security, because there's only one thing that's secure, all right? That you're going to die. There's only one certainty, is that you're going to die. So you may as well live every single day to the max as though it's your last. That's what Steve Jobs said, a great quote. I mean, he's a little bit extreme with what he's done, but you don't have to be a Steve Jobs to be happy. But what I'm saying is you don't need to work in a job that you don't want to do as a slave to be happy.
Yeah. You
don't have to sacrifice your dreams and ambitions to be happy. You know, for you to be loved, you already have everything you need. Okay? So you don't have to do stupid shit that society and culture tells you should do to be in love. Okay? You just have to choose to be in love already with what you've got. And boom, and that's when the magic happens. And that's what SOMA really is about. Because once you get in tune with your body, all of this other stuff comes, boom, quick.
Wow. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, we have a hidden power inside ourselves. Just need to connect with our body and our mind together in a current level, and then you can find the bliss, you can find the happiness, and it is really awakening, because we wake up from this dream that's self-sleep life that we take through the time. And that's amazing, because it's something that I only can feel, and I cannot explain so well like you. But, you know, when we wake up, it looks like a lens that was covering your eyes just fell down, and then you start to see the world in a different manner, in a different way. And then you cannot explain, but you feel more connected, more happy, more satisfied, and then the life starts to unfold for you. Yes. So, Niraj, could you please let a final word to my audience to inspire them to take action and join a SOMA Awakening Breathwork class in Brazil with me, especially?
Yes. Well, I mean, I think it's I can't tell anyone to do anything. All I can do is inspire. So inspire means, actually in Latin, it comes from the word spiritual. It means to breathe in. Okay, or it's another word for, when you breathe, you actually activate the thoughts and if you breathe in a certain way, in a rhythm, actually you can actually create higher quality thoughts. So one thing I would do right now is just tell everyone, okay, who's listening to this, just to try this technique. Okay, it's called breathe in beats, right? It's where we breathe in a rhythm. So you breathe in, if music is playing like this, right? You breathe. Actually, can I even play a track?
Yeah, for sure.
Will it record? Okay, let's do something different that you don't usually have. But as I'm a musician, I'm going to play one track, and we'll just get a little taste of SOMA, because there's no point in me telling you to do something. It's better if I inspire you to do it. So this is the way we're going to do it. So I'm going to just get one of my favorite tracks, and I'm going to just put this on. Okay, and we're just going to do a minute or two of breath work just to really get connected. So yeah? Beautiful. So you hear the music?
Yeah.
So what we're going to do, we're going to create a state called heart coherence. So when you breathe in, you stimulate your sympathetic nervous system. That's your fight and flight response. When you breathe out, you stimulate your parasympathetic. That's your rest and digest mode. So when you breathe in a rhythm, you actually stimulate the sympathetic and parasympathetic in a harmonious way, which creates a harmonization over your entire physiology. It's called coherence. Okay, if you're into things like heart rate variability and coherence, this is the fastest way to get into coherence. Okay, so the coherence is really good to focus on an emotion. Okay, something that makes you feel really good. So the quickest route to feeling really good is having gratitude. So embodying the feeling of having right now something that you truly are grateful for. Okay? So just for a moment before you get into the rhythm, is just you close your eyes and you bring yourself into a nice relaxed state. And you begin to start to visualize or feel and embody the feelings of gratitude. And one way to help you along with that is to create like a movie in your mind, an image or a scene playing out like a story of you doing or having or embracing whatever it is that makes you feel really, really grateful. Okay? So I just want you to spend a few moments right now just embodying that feeling of deep gratitude. That's right. And every time you breathe now, you're going to be turning up the dial, the intensity and those good feelings of gratitude. So begin to now bring your awareness to your breath. And using both your nostrils, you're going to breathe in 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. So keep that rhythm going. Breathing out through your mouth, in through your nose. Smooth, connected. Slow, smooth and connected. That's right. Keep breathing. And don't pause. Keep that rhythm. Every breath should be slow, smooth and connected. You can even move your hands up and down. Keep that rhythm going. Now at every breath you're taking in and out, imagine you're breathing in gratitude and breathing out love. That's right. Just keep that rhythm of gratitude in, love out. That's right. It's embodying those good feelings, good sensations of love, self-love, joy, passion. That's right. Because you are amazing. You are a miracle. And you have everything you need to receive. Abundance, love, health, wealth, and happiness are all yours. So open your heart and let the love pour in. Open your mind, connect to the light within. Okay, now you're going to take a deep breath in, fully in. And now let out a sigh of ah. Now take a deep breath in, fully in. This time do an om. Now another deep breath in, fully in. And again. You can hold your breath. Hold your breath. Bring your neck down, chin to chest. Hold your breath for as long as comfortable. Try and push it slightly beyond the comfort zone. When you get the urge to breathe, take a breath fully in and then out again. And hold your breath again. And out. Hold your breath. And then when you can't hold your breath any longer, just come back. To normal breathing. That's right. Just look to your third eye with your eyes closed, center of your forehead. You may see colors, lights, shapes. You may even feel good sensations. Allow those good sensations, vibrations, to just flow freely through your body, the energy of the SOMA. That's right.
Whoa. Now is very good.
Yeah?
Yeah, thank you so much. A VIP class with Niraj. I'm very honored.
Yeah, that was just a little short experience of what's possible.
Yeah, what you mean. We need to feel the experience. We need to allow ourselves to have the experience. So there are no words to explain, only the experience. When you feel this SOMA growing within yourself, that's amazing. And you get liberated from pain, from suffering, from anything that's bothering you right now. So allow yourself to practice this. And of course, thank you so much, Niraj.
And remember, I haven't invented anything new. This is all ancient practices. These are shamanic breathing practices from 1,000 years ago, the time of the Rig Veda, pranayama, and rhythmic breathwork. All of these things have existed for thousands of years. I'm just bringing you back these techniques in a fun, cool, accessible way with a lot of science behind it. And the music just makes the whole process next level. So the music is definitely my new addition to it. Although music has been used shamanically and spiritually for many years as well, I just brought it a bit more up to current standards, and you can feel it, right? You can experience it. So if you want to actually do a proper whole experience, learn more about the science, then definitely go and check out a somabreath.com website. Sign up for the free webinar, and you'll learn a lot about how to activate your inner pharmacy, how to reach psychedelic states with your breath, and actually go through a whole proper experience that lasts about 30 minutes that will give you a real mind-blowing, exhilarating, high-intensity training for your soul and spirit.
Yeah, for sure. Totally. Go to the post of this episode where you will find the link to find out more about SOMA Breathworks, and of course, know a lot more about the job that Niraj has made in the world. Thank you so much, Niraj, for your kind performance.
Of course. And the one thing to add is that once you have a taste of it and you want to go to a class, then contact Gabriel and he will take you through a full power SOMA experience.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. Okay. Nice. Okay, Niraj, thank you so much for this nice interview that I think is a life-changing interview for many of our listeners in Brazil. So thank you so much, and see you briefly in this world, whereabouts in this world.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.
Peace. Namaste.
Namaste.